Moving into a new home was supposed to be a fresh start. After my divorce, I wanted solitude, a quiet place where I could heal. The house I found was perfect, a modest two-story structure on the outskirts of town. The only neighbors were a few houses down the street, except for the one directly next to mine. It was a nearly identical house, well-maintained but eerily quiet. No cars in the driveway, no signs of life. Just a dark, looming presence standing beside my new home. The first night, I barely settled in before I noticed him. A man, standing in the window of the neighboring house, watching me. At first, I thought he was just a curious neighbor, perhaps surprised by the arrival of someone new. But the longer I observed, the stranger it became. He didn't move. He didn't react when I turned my lights on. He just stood there, his face obscured by the shadows. I waved, no response. Eventually, I shrugged it off and went to bed, convincing myself that I was just unsettled by the change. The next morning, I looked again. The window was empty. For a few days, nothing happened. No noises, no disturbances. Just me unpacking, trying to make the place feel like home. But on the fourth night, the sound of my doorbell rang through the house. I hesitated, glancing at the clock. 2:17 a.m. Who the hell rings a doorbell at this hour? I cautiously approached the door, peering through the peephole. No one was there. I flicked on the porch light and cracked the door open just enough to look outside. A chill ran through me. Standing at the end of my driveway was the man from the window. Even from a distance, something about him felt wrong. He was tall, unnaturally so, his frame elongated in the dim light. He wore a black coat that reached his knees, his hands tucked into the pockets. But his face, I couldn't make out any distinct features. His skin seemed too smooth, like a blurred photograph. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there. A deep sense of unease crept into my chest. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and double-checked the windows before retreating to my room. I barely slept that night, listening for any sound, any sign that he was still there. The next morning, I stepped outside hesitantly, scanning the yard. The man was gone. No footprints in the dew-covered grass. No sign that he had ever been there. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe I was still adjusting. Maybe I had imagined it. But that evening I saw him again. This time he was in my backyard. I was washing dishes when I caught the movement in the corner of my eye. My breath hitched as I turned towards the window above the sink. There he was, standing just beyond the tree line, half hidden in the shadows. Watching, I stumbled back, my heart pounding. I grabbed my phone, fingers shaking as I dialed 911. The dispatcher's voice was calm, but I struggled to explain. There's a man in my backyard. He's been watching me for days. I don't know what he wants. Stay inside, lock your doors. An officer is on the way. I did as she said, but as I stepped away from the window, something caught my attention. Something that shouldn't have been possible. The kitchen window reflected the entire backyard. I could see the trees, the grass, even the fence, but I couldn't see him. I turned back towards the window, eyes widening in horror. He was still there, clear as day. But in the reflection, nothing. It was as if he didn't exist. A cold dread filled my stomach as I stared at the impossible. The sound of sirens broke my trance, and I ran to the front door. The police car pulled up, and an officer stepped out. I nearly yanked him inside, breathlessly explaining everything. He nodded, stepping out back to check. But as I followed, dread overtook me. The man was gone. No footprints, no sign of forced entry, no evidence that anyone had been there at all. The officer gave me a concerned look. "Are you sure you saw someone?" I wanted to scream. I knew what I had seen, but I also knew how it sounded. A stranger who leaves no trace, who casts no reflection. It was insane. Maybe I imagined it, I muttered. The officer gave me a few reassurances, telling me to call if I saw anything unusual again. Then he left and I was alone once more. But I wasn't, because that night, I heard something moving inside my house. And when I looked out my bedroom window, the man was standing at my front door. And this time he was knocking. The knocking wouldn't stop. Rhythmic, slow, insistent. Each knock sent a tremor through my chest, my pulse hammering as I stood frozen at the top of the stairs. The sound echoed through the house, filling every corner like a heartbeat out of sync with reality. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers, dialing 911 again. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man at my door, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding in my ears. He's been watching me. He was in my backyard. Please, send someone now. Is he trying to break in? I hesitated, staring at the door. Knock, knock, knock. No, I admitted. He's just knocking. Has he spoken to you? Made any threats? No, he just stands there. A pause. I could hear the dispatcher typing. My breath came in quick, shallow gasps. Officers are on their way. Do not engage. Stay inside and keep your doors locked. I didn't need to be told twice. I backed away from the stairs, stepping deeper into the shadows of the hallway. But as I did, something changed. The knocking stopped. A silence, thick and unnatural, settled over the house. I dared a glance toward the peephole, my heart slamming against my ribs. Slowly, carefully, I inched forward and peered through. He was gone. The porch was empty. The streetlights buzzed faintly, casting long, spindly shadows across my lawn. But the man vanished. The relief was brief. A sickening paranoia clawed its way into my gut. I checked the locks. I checked the windows. I checked the backyard, half expecting him to be there. But there was nothing. Then I heard it. A whisper, not from outside, from inside the house. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat. The voice was low, just above a murmur, but unmistakable. Words I couldn't quite decipher, slipping through the walls like something seeping into my bones. I wasn't alone. A creak on the stairs sent me bolting for my bedroom. I slammed the door shut, locking it before backing away, my hands shaking. My mind raced for explanations. Had he gotten in? Had I left a door unlocked? I grabbed the baseball bat from my closet, clutching it so tight my knuckles ached. The whispers faded, replaced by the distant wail of sirens. The cops were here. I didn't hesitate. I tore open the door, ran down the stairs, and flung the front door open just as two officers stepped out of their cruiser. He's inside, I gasped. He was outside, but I heard him inside. He's in my house. One officer, a man in his early 40s with a hardened face, exchanged a glance with his younger partner before nodding. Stay here, he ordered. They drew their weapons and stepped inside. I stood on the porch, arms wrapped around myself, barely breathing. Minutes stretched like hours as I watched their flashlights sweep through my home. I half expected gunfire, a struggle, something. But when they emerged, their expressions were unreadable. There's no one inside, the older officer said. I stared at him, my mind reeling. That's not possible. We checked every room. Windows are locked, no signs of forced entry. Are you sure you heard someone? The disbelief in his voice made my stomach churn. I wanted to argue, to insist that I wasn't crazy, but the evidence or lack of it was against me. Still, I knew what I heard, what I saw. There was a man, I said finally. He's my neighbor. He's been watching me." The officers exchanged another look. "The house next door?" the younger one asked. "Yes." He hesitated. "That house has been empty for almost 10 years. I felt the blood drain from my face. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, I saw him." Ma'am, the last owner passed away years ago," the older officer interrupted. "No one's lived there since." Couldn't breathe. My thoughts tangled in a chaotic mess of doubt and fear. Had I imagined him? Was I losing my mind? "We'll keep an eye on the area," the officer said. "If you see anything else, call us." I nodded numbly, stepping back inside as they drove away. I locked the door, double-checked the windows. My mind screamed for me to pack a bag and leave. But where would I go? I trudged upstairs, exhaustion weighing me down. Maybe I was just paranoid. Maybe the stress of moving had gotten to me. Maybe I just needed sleep. But as I entered my bedroom, my heart stopped. The closet door was open. I hadn't left it open. And inside, nestled in the darkness, stood a mirror. A mirror that hadn't been there before. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering in my ears. The reflection showed my room, dimly lit by the bedside lamp. It showed my bed, my dresser, the window behind me. But it didn't show me. And then, behind me in the reflection, the closet door opened wider. I turned. The man stood there inches away. And this time he whispered, "Let me in." My breath caught in my throat. The man stood inches away, his presence pressing against the air itself. The dim glow from the bedside lamp barely illuminated his face, but what I could see made my stomach churn. His skin was smooth, too smooth, like porcelain, devoid of pores or imperfections. His lips barely moved as he whispered again, "Let me in." A cold dread wrapped around my spine. I stumbled back, my legs nearly giving out as I reached for the baseball bat I had left by the nightstand. My fingers curled around the handle, knuckles white. But when I looked up again, he was gone. The closet door stood ajar, revealing nothing but hanging clothes and shadows. My chest heaved as I whipped around, scanning the room. The mirror still reflected the space behind me. My bed, the dresser, the open closet. But not me. I stepped forward, watching as the reflection remained disturbingly empty. My hands trembled as I reached out, fingertips brushing the cold glass. No condensation, no warmth, just an unnatural chill. Then, something in the reflection shifted. Not in the room, not behind me, but inside the mirror. A shape moved, dark and slow, like something lurking just beneath the surface of still water. A silhouette took form. A tall, gaunt figure that stepped closer, its faceless head tilting as if studying me. And then, it raised a hand. I didn't think. I reacted. I grabbed the nearest object, a framed photo from my dresser, and hurled it at the mirror. The glass shattered, fracturing the figure into 1,000 jagged pieces. Shards exploded across the floor, glittering in the dim light. Silence. Nothing moved. My pulse pounded in my ears as I staggered back, my mind a storm of panic and disbelief. What the hell was happening? I needed to get out of this house. Now, I grabbed my car keys from the nightstand, barely pausing to throw on my shoes. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to put as much distance as possible between myself and whatever was in that mirror. I bolted down the stairs, nearly tripping in my desperation. My fingers fumbled with the locks, twisting and yanking the door open. The night air hit me like a slap. Cool, crisp, empty. For a moment, I thought I had made it. Then I saw him, standing in my driveway. The same man, the same black coat, the same eerie stillness. Except this time something was different. He wasn't just watching. He was smiling. Not a natural smile. Not a friendly one. His lips stretched too wide, too unnatural, revealing teeth that were sharp, too sharp. And then, slowly, he raised his hand, his long, slender fingers pointing at my front door. I followed the movement, my breath hitching, and that's when I saw it. The door wasn't open anymore. It was closed. The locks were engaged, as if I had never left. A sickening realization slithered through me. I turned back to the man, my heart hammering. "What do you want?" I choked out. His smile widened. "You already let me in." I stumbled back. No, I didn't." His head tilted. "Yes, you did." And then he stepped forward. Not towards me, but towards my house. He reached for the door handle, and to my horror, it turned effortlessly in his grasp. I had locked that door. I knew I had, but it opened for him, like it was welcoming him home. I ran. I didn't hesitate. I just sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys, my hands shaking too violently to get the damn door unlocked. I glanced back at the house, breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The man was inside, standing in the foyer, smiling at me through the window. My blood ran cold, because this time, I could see his reflection, and he wasn't alone. Behind him, in the mirror above the hallway table, was me, trapped inside. My own reflection, screaming, couldn't breathe. There I was, inside the mirror. My reflection wasn't copying my movements. It wasn't looking at me in the same way I looked at it. It was trapped, pounding on the inside of the glass, its mouth open in a soundless scream. And the man, he was watching, smiling. I don't remember unlocking the car door. I don't remember fumbling inside and slamming it shut behind me. My hands were shaking so violently that I could barely push the key into the ignition. Come on, come on. The engine sputtered. The headlights flared to life, illuminating the front of the house. The porch light flickered as if struggling to stay on. And then, the front door creaked open again. I didn't see him move. One moment, he was standing inside the house, his back to the mirror. The next, he was on the porch, just standing there, watching me. The air inside the car felt suffocating. I threw it into reverse, my tires screeching against the pavement as I backed out of the driveway. My pulse pounded in my ears. I had no plan, just one desperate thought. Get away. I tore down the road, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Streetlights blurred past me in streaks of orange and yellow. My house, that house, disappeared in the rearview mirror. But then something else caught my eye. The reflection in the mirror above my dashboard. It wasn't showing the road behind me. It was showing my bedroom, my bed, my closet, my reflection, still trapped. My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked away, but I could feel it, that wrongness creeping over me. I wanted to scream, but I was too scared to open my mouth, afraid of what might come out. Then, a figure stepped into the frame, tall, gaunt, smiling. The man. He reached toward the mirror, fingers pressing against the glass from inside my reflection. I gasped, my foot slamming on the brakes. My car skidded, tires screeching as I fought to control it. And just like that, the mirror went dark. The road behind me returned. No more bedroom, no more me inside the glass. I sat there, gasping for breath, gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline. My entire body trembled. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. But then, where the hell was my reflection? I forced myself to look into the rearview mirror again, dread curling in my stomach. Nothing. No me. The seat behind me was empty. It was as if I didn't exist. The street was dark, the houses along the road quiet and lifeless. I tried to steady my breathing, Think, think. I needed help. I needed answers. And there was only one place that might have them. The library. The town library was open late, one of the few places that didn't shut down after 9 p.m. I parked haphazardly, stumbling out of my car and into the dimly lit building. The librarian, an older woman with silver hair and deep-set eyes, looked up as I entered. Her expression shifted the moment she saw me, like she recognized me. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice cautious. I need information," I stammered. "About my house. About the one next door." Her gaze darkened. "Which house?" I swallowed hard. "The one at the end of Hollow Creek Road." She paled. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated. "Because I think I'm being haunted. Because my reflection is missing. Because I saw myself trapped in a mirror and a man with no reflection is trying to take my place." Instead, I said, "I think something's wrong with it." She studied me for a long moment. Then, without another word, she turned and disappeared behind the rows of bookshelves. I followed, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. She led me to the archives section, dusty old newspapers, records, things forgotten by time. She pulled out a thick file, placed it on the table, and flipped it open. The first thing I saw was a photograph of him, the man, standing in front of my house. Only, the photo was old, decades old, yellowed with age. I flipped through the pages, my stomach twisting as the headlines jumped out at me. "Man vanishes without a trace. Last seen in Hollow Creek home. Residents report strange sightings. Mysterious figure in windows. Local family found dead, mirrors smashed in every room." I felt sick. "He's been there for a long time," the librarian murmured. "Waiting." I looked up, throat dry. "Waiting for what?" Her eyes met mine, grim and knowing. "For someone to let him in." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Because I had looked at him, acknowledged him, opened the door. And now he wasn't just outside. He was inside. In my house. In my life. Maybe even in me. My hands shook as I reached for the photograph again. But as I touched it, something else caught my attention. A reflection. In the glass of the frame. But it wasn't mine. Behind me, standing just over my shoulder, was the man. And he was smiling. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. The air behind me felt heavy, thick, like something unseen was pressing against my back. My breath was shallow, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. In the reflection of the glass frame, the man stood over my shoulder. Close. Too close. His lips curled into that sickening smile, his eyes, if he even had them, fixated on me. And then, slowly, he raised a hand. My vision blurred with terror. I shoved away from the table, the chair scraping against the floor as I spun around. But there was no one there. The librarian gasped, her wrinkled hands gripping the table's edge. "You saw him, didn't you?" I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Her expression darkened. "Then you don't have much time." The words chilled me. What do you mean?" I croaked. She exhaled sharply, shutting the file with a soft thud. "You let him in," she murmured. "And now he's taking your place." I shook my head. "No, that's not possible. I left my house. He's there. Not." A flicker in the window's reflection cut me off. I turned, dread curling in my stomach. The glass of the library window showed the street outside, the empty sidewalk, the dim glow of streetlights, and me. But something was wrong. I stepped closer, my breath fogging the glass. My reflection copied me, moving in perfect synchronization. But as I looked into my own eyes, my stomach twisted. They weren't my eyes. They were his. dark, hollow, smiling. I stumbled back. No, the librarian's voice was urgent. You need to act now. If he fully replaces you, there will be nothing left of you to bring back. I gripped the edge of the table. How do I stop him? Her lips pressed into a thin line. You break the connection. I swallowed. How? She hesitated, as if she was about to say something that shouldn't be spoken aloud. Then, finally, she leaned in and whispered, You have to destroy the mirror that holds your reflection. I shuddered. The mirror in my house. She nodded grimly. But be warned, he won't let you. My pulse thundered in my ears. There was no choice. I had to go back. I had to end this. The return. The drive back was a blur. My grip on the steering wheel was iron tight, my mind racing through every possible scenario. Would he be waiting? Would I still be able to see myself inside the mirror? Or had I already lost? The house loomed ahead, dark and motionless. A deep, oppressive silence blanketed the neighborhood, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I parked but didn't turn off the engine. Every instinct screamed at me to keep driving, to abandon this place and never look back. But I knew that if I ran, I wouldn't make it far. This man would follow me. I stepped out of the car, my heart hammering. The front door was wide open. A welcome, a trap. I gritted my teeth and stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with something wrong. The walls seemed darker, the shadows stretching unnaturally long. And then, from upstairs, a faint whisper. My whisper. I clenched my fists and moved toward the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight, the sound swallowed by the suffocating silence. My breath came in sharp, shallow bursts. At the top of the landing, my bedroom door stood open. The mirror inside waited. I stepped inside, my skin crawling. The mirror was whole again. No cracks, no shattered glass. It stood pristine, reflecting the dim room. But I wasn't in it. Instead, he was standing inside the glass, waiting. He smiled at me. My smile, my expression, my face. But those eyes, those hollow, endless eyes. He lifted a hand, pressing it against the inside of the mirror. And my body moved, not by my own will. My fingers lifted against my control, mirroring his gesture. My breath hitched. My arm twitched, moved. Something was pulling me in. I fought it. Every fiber of my being screamed as I wrenched my hand back, staggering away. He tilted his head, amused. I lunged for the baseball bat near my nightstand. My fingers barely wrapped around the handle before the air behind me shifted. Cold. Wrong. A whisper brushed against my ear. Let me in. I swung. The bat connected with the mirror. A soundless explosion erupted as the glass shattered, splintering into 1,000 jagged pieces. The reflection, his reflection, distorted, twisting in agony as the shards rained down. And then, silence, a deafening, unnatural stillness. I gasped for breath, my chest rising and falling in erratic bursts. The mirror was destroyed. The reflection was gone. And then, I saw myself in the largest remaining shard of glass on the floor. My own face, not his, not hollow, just me. The aftermath. I didn't sleep that night. I barely moved. The house felt different, lighter, yet haunted in a way I couldn't explain. I spent hours cleaning up the glass, my hands trembling. Every few seconds, I would glance at the smallest reflections in the shards, half expecting to see him staring back. But he wasn't. He was gone. By morning, exhaustion overtook me. I collapsed onto the couch, body sore, mind raw. I didn't dream. For the first time in days, I didn't dream. I moved out 3 days later. I didn't sell the house. I didn't pack much. I just left. And as I drove away, I forced myself to glance at the rearview mirror one last time, just to be sure. The reflection that looked back at me was my own.